Before we talk about what Node.js is or explore why it's a useful tool, we're going to go ahead and install it. And the reason we're installing it first is because we're actually going to use a little bit of Node.js in this section to answer those two important questions. In this video, we're going to install Node.js. It's a super easy process, and we're also going to make sure you have a text editor on your machine so we can use it to write our scripts throughout the class. Let's go ahead and get started by installing Node. We can find it over at the official Node website, nodejs.org. Right here on the Node.js homepage, we have the download section for our operating system. Right here, I am indeed running on a Mac, and down below, I have two Node versions I could choose to install. On the left, I have version 8.12.0, which is the current LTS version. That stands for long-term support. And on the right, I have version 11.0.0, which is the current release with the latest features. And that's the version of Node we're going to work with throughout the class. This is Andrew from the future with a quick update. You'll notice that now the LTS version is 10.15.3 and the current release is 12.1.0. I've updated the class, and to get the most out of the course, it is now recommended that you use version 12 or greater. All right, that's it for this quick interruption. Let's get back to the course. Now, if you're seeing a more recent current version, please go ahead and install that. I'm frequently updating this course to always support the latest Node features. So as you move through the class, I recommend installing the newest version of Node possible. Once again, for me, that's currently 11.0.0. So I'm going to go ahead and click that big green button. That's going to download the installer, and it's one of those really easy click next installers. So let's go ahead and run through it. Right here, there's no need to customize anything we see. We'll click continue a couple of times. We'll agree to some stuff we're not going to read, and we'll choose where we want to install Node. From here, all we have to do is authenticate. I'm going to provide my password, and after just a couple of seconds, Node.js will be installed on your machine. And there we go. The Node installer is all done. It says that Node was successfully installed, and all we're going to do is test that by running a single command from the terminal on your machine. We're going to make sure that Node was indeed wired up correctly. To do that, let's go ahead and first close down the installer. We're all done with this. I am going to go ahead and move it to the trash. It is no longer necessary. And what we're going to do now is open up the terminal on our machines. On my Mac, I'm going to get that done by cracking open Spotlight and searching for the terminal application. If you're on Windows, you can use the Windows key to bring up the search bar and search for the command prompt application. If you're on Linux, the exact name and location is going to depend on your distribution. You're looking for something like the terminal, the command prompt, or the command line. Now we're going to go ahead and crack this open, and what we get, regardless of our OS, is the same thing. Stylistically, it's going to look a little bit different, but it is a place for us to type commands. We can then hit enter to run those commands, and we'll see the results right here in this screen. Now, when we installed Node.js, we didn't get a GUI application with fields and buttons and text. Instead, what we got is a command we can now run from the command prompt. We're going to be using this command hundreds of times throughout the course, and we'll learn a lot more about it and how it works throughout the class. For now, though, we're going to use it in one way to check for the Node version installed. So right here, we're going to type out 7 characters. To start, we will run the node command. So we're going to type out node, N-O-D-E, followed by a space, and we're going to provide an argument to this command telling it that we just want to know the version of Node that's running. So right here after that space, it is a hyphen followed by the letter V. Now, if we go ahead and run this, we are going to get the version of Node we just installed. Right here, I'm seeing version 11.0.0, which is indeed the version I installed a few minutes ago. Right here, you might not see the same version I have, but you should see the same version you just installed. Now, what if you're not getting that? Well, if you're not getting a version, that likely means Node wasn't installed correctly. And to simulate what this looks like, I'm just going to mistype node. So I'll type node with 2 E's as an example. Then I'll try to use this v argument to ask for the version, but there is no node command with 2 E's, so what do I get? I get an error saying something like command not found. If you're seeing something like this when you run the correctly spelled command, that means that node wasn't installed correctly and that we need to address that before you can continue on. To do that, all you have to do is crack open a question in the course Q&A, and I'll work with you to get Node installed correctly. So at this point, we've installed Node.js and we've confirmed that we can actually use it on our machines, and that's where we're going to stop with the terminal for now. I'm going to leave the terminal open as we'll be using it in the next several videos, and if you don't have any previous terminal experience, don't worry, we'll cover all of the commands we end up running. No terminal experience required. That's all we're going to do with Node for now. To wrap up the video, I want to make sure we all have a text editor we can use to write out our Node scripts. So to do that, let's go ahead and explore a couple of different options. Throughout this class, I'll be using Visual Studio Code. You can find and install this over at code.visualstudio.com. Now, there are a few reasons I love Visual Studio Code. It is free, it is open source, and it's available for all operating systems, whether you're running on Mac, Windows, or Linux. It also has one of the best editors I've used in a while, with a fantastic ecosystem of extensions and themes, allowing you to really customize the editor to fit your needs. And we're going to do just that with Node.js. With Visual Studio Code, we can actually debug Node.js right inside of the tool, which is a great feature you don't always see from text editors. Now, there is no reason you have to use Visual Studio Code. It is just the editor I'll be using throughout the class. You're more than welcome to use any editor you're comfortable with. If you already have one that supports JavaScript, then you're already good to go. But if you're looking for something new and you want to try out what is a very cool tool, I definitely recommend checking out Visual Studio Code. Now, there are plenty of other options out there as well. In the past, I've used the Atom text editor in my classes. It's also a great free open source editor available for all operating systems. And there are some good paid editors out there as well. Examples of that would be Sublime Text 3 and WebStorm. Now, WebStorm is definitely more of an IDE than a text editor, but it's also a tool worth checking out. So all we need is to install one of these. If you want to follow along exactly and use the setup I use, I recommend installing Visual Studio Code. So take a moment to get that done. You can pause the video, then come back when you have it installed, and we're going to wrap up the course by just cracking it open. So I'm going to open up from Spotlight, Visual Studio Code, and right here, we're not going to actually do anything with the editor. I just want to make sure we have it installed and we can actually crack it open. So we have Node installed, we've checked that the command works, and we have a text editor where we can now write Node scripts. That is it for this installation video. We're now ready to continue with the rest of the course. In the next 2 videos, as I mentioned, we're going to focus on answering 2 important questions. What is Node.js, and why is Node.js a tool worth using? I'm excited to talk about both of those, so let's go ahead and jump right in to the next one.